series that aired on Cartoon Network in the fall of 2014, created by Patrick McHale, who previously worked on The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack and Adventure Time. Over the Garden Wall is an atmospheric dark fantasy that evokes the fall season and old Americana. It's a very whimsical show, and it taps into that dreamlike quality where everything is just a bit off. The project was envisioned since 2004, but it wasn't until 2013 when McHale made a short for Cartoon Network's Shorts Development Program, a program that showcases pilots that could potentially be greenlit for a full series. Several cartoons such as Clarence, OKKO, and Steven Universe came out of this program. Tome of the Unknown was pretty successful in its own right, being released at several film festivals and winning many awards. McHale and Cartoon Network would agree to rework the story into a miniseries format, and in the first week of November of 2014, the series would release its 10 episodes in 2-episode increments. Over the Garden Wall follows the brothers, Wirt and Greg, played by Elijah Wood and Colin Dean respectively, as they trek through the mysterious forest known as the Unknown. They are lost in the woods and need to find a way home, but that will prove to be harder than it sounds.
Where are we?
In the woods?
I mean, what are we doing out here?
We're walking home.
Greg, I think we're lost.
We start the series with Wirt and Greg already lost. We get no backstory as to how they got there or where they're from. This immediately establishes a mystery that will get the audience invested. And since we are just as lost as the boys, we end up on the same level as them as they discover new and odd things within the unknown. Along the way, they are accompanied by Beatrice, a snarky talking bird voiced by Melanie Linsky.
My name's Greg. What's yours?
Beatrice?
My brother's name is Wirt.
Who cares?
She acts as their guide through the woods, leading them to a woman called Adelaide, who can lead the boys home and undo Beatrice's curse. Occasionally appearing is the woodsman played by Christopher Lloyd, was my favorite performance in the series. He gives the woodsman a commanding presence. This combined with the frantic desperation makes for a very compelling character.
Beware the unknown! Fear the beast! And leave these woods if you can.
He occasionally shows up to warn the boys of the enigmatic beast, whose dark presence can be felt throughout the entire show. Whenever people talk about the beast, their faces are always shrouded in darkness. The beast is constantly following Wirt and Greg, waiting until he gets the opportunity to turn them into fuel for his lantern. Each episode follows the boys as they end up at a unique set piece, meeting new and quirky characters along the way. This includes a town full of pumpkin people, a school with funny animal children, and a teacher who can't get over her ex.
A is for the apple that he gave to me, but I found a worm inside.
And the rich guy whose mansion is somehow connected to someone else's. There's a folksy element to these stories that take inspiration from colonial and 19th century American storytelling, but at the same time you couldn't quite pinpoint the exact year it takes place in. They pulled from a mishmash of sources such as the McLaughlin brothers, Gustave Doré, 30s films, and several vintage illustrations, postcards, and photographs to create a lush and rich environment to serve as the backdrop of the show. It goes without saying that the backgrounds are gorgeous. I mean, just look at them. It seems that because the show is a limited series, the crew are allowed a larger budget to create such masterful works of art. The backgrounds are rich with details that really give that sense of place to the settings. The color palette is very earthy, with brown being a prominent color. This emphasizes the nostalgic vintage feel that permeates the show. And a special mention goes to the use of very dark shadows. Very dark blacks are also prominently used in the backgrounds, sometimes to the point where it envelops the screen and creates a vignette around the characters. It really helps to accentuate the more macabre elements that complements the whimsy of the show. It can be quite a dark show. It feels like death stalks around every corner, and not everything is what it seems. It definitely doesn't hold back on the imagery, with several characters having a grotesque or ominous design, and it really uses the visual darkness to its advantage, to really make you feel lost along with the characters, to make the unknown really feel unknown. However, a recurring element of the show is how the answers end up being a lot more mundane than what the mystery suggests. What Wirt and Greg thought was the beast is actually just a dog. The gorilla that terrorizes the school was actually the teacher's fiancé stuck in a costume. The ghost that haunts Quincy Endicott's mansion was actually his neighbor, whose mansion is connected to his. While there is a darkness to the series, the characters are given several moments to breathe and hang out. It can be pretty loose and carefree sometimes, allowing for many character moments and fun banter between them. This especially applies to Greg, who always gives levity to any situation with his childish quips and non-sequitur rock facts.
Did you know that if you soak a raisin in grape juice, it turns into a grape?
He plays an important role in the series, giving it some much-needed humor in an otherwise dour world. He also makes for a great foil to Wirt's more serious and neurotic personality. Something else that greatly adds to the atmosphere is the music. The music for the series is done by the folk band, The Blasting Company, utilizing real instruments as opposed to the standard synth music used in other shows. Over the Garden Wall creates a rich soundscape that combines elements from many genres throughout American history. It can be quite varied while still evoking that vintage feel. They have these lush, folksy strings in one piece, upbeat Dixieland jazz in the next, and spooky theremin music in another. Elijah Wood has been quoted as saying,
If this show were a record, it would be played on a phonograph.
and I couldn't think of a better description than that. Along with the instrumental music, the show features several musical numbers. There can be upwards of 3 per episode, each bringing a unique energy that complements each episode. The soundtrack showcases some very talented artists, such as Chris Isaac, with his soothing melodic voice,
Time's a gentle stream, longer than it seems. Vision is the night.
Jack Jones bringing a mysterious baritone aura to his pieces,
And over the garden wall to thee.
and Samuel Ramsey's operatic style giving the beast a theatrical gravitas. The music really gives Over the Garden Wall its identity. As important as the art and story are, you really can't have the show without it. As I said before, not everything in this show is what it seems, and you can never trust your first impressions of anything in this world. While most of the time the more sinister elements can turn out to be quite benign, the reverse can also be true. When Wirt, Greg, and Beatrice make it to Adelaide's house, she is revealed to have been the one to curse Beatrice's family into becoming birds. In order to undo the curse, Beatrice was instructed to bring her slaves.
Our arrangement was for you to bring me a child servant, and then I give you the scissors.
The whole time Beatrice was supposedly leading Wirt and Greg home, she was leading them to a life of servitude. However, in their journey, she started to grow a liking to the boys, and she pleads to Adelaide to give her another way to rid her curse.
Yeah. So give me the scissors. I'll go help my family.
But it doesn't matter to Wirt, so he and Greg separate from her to find a way home on their own. The second half of the series is notably darker and more focused. The feeling of death draws ever closer as the color palette grows more cold and desaturated. It's cold, it's snowing, and the boys are more lost than ever before. Greg has a dream while sleeping in the woods with Wirt. The cheerful 30s-inspired cartoon world is unsettling with how it contrasts with the boys' dire situation. Meanwhile, the beast has claimed Wirt, who is now covered in Edelwood branches. Upon finding this out, Greg chooses to take Wirt's place, and he leaves with the beast.
Okay, I have to go now. Goodbye, Wirt.
Yes, come, Gregory. There is much to be done.
The angels have gone.
Wait, what's this? Why is a modern rock song playing? Is that a cassette tape? So the penultimate episode is a flashback that reveals the biggest twist of the series. Wirt and Greg were actually from a more modern era. After a mishap on Halloween where they get chased by the cops, they end up falling into a river unconscious. It's heavily implied that their whole journey in the unknown took place in an end-of-life dream while they drown in the river. This isn't the first time I covered something like this, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? The twist was actually hinted at throughout the show. The title card for nearly every episode closes with the sound of a train whistle. The same old black train that pushes Wirt and Greg down the hill. The first episode begins with an effect that evokes the feeling of being underwater, and the voice seems to speak very contemporary compared to the more antiquated setting.
So we came here to burgle your turts.
I did mention before that the show had a dreamlike quality, and with this in mind, it becomes clear that the beast metaphorically represents death, claiming the lives of those who get lost in the unknown, a figurative purgatory. He has been stalking the boys, ever present throughout their journey, until he finally catches up to them, a harbinger of their death. The final episode is the darkest yet, and even the colors reflect this tone. It goes from cold bleak whites to pitch darkness as Wirt comes face to face with the beast. Meanwhile, Greg is succumbing to the beast, slowly being consumed by Edelwood branches. All of this hauntingly set to a slow Latin reprise of potatoes and molasses, if the imagery wasn't upsetting enough. Wirt tries to free his brother to no avail. It seems that the only way to save him is to make a deal with the beast. So now we see Wirt as he grapples with the difficult decision on whether or not to...
Wait, That's dumb.
So, Wirt's overly analytical and pessimistic nature works to his advantage as he deduces that the lantern does not hold the souls of others.
It's almost like your soul is in this lantern.
With the beast defeated by the woodsmen, Wirt and Greg are now ready to leave the unknown and back into the familiar. After defying death, they wake up back in the river and are rescued. Wirt now has the courage to start hanging out with his crush, Sarah, and Greg now has a proper name for his frog.
Yeah, and you were there too, Jason Funderburker.
Me?
Not you, Jason Funderburker, my frog.
Wait, why does he glow? Well, that flies in the face of my theory. So we bookend on a similar sequence as from the beginning, now showing how Wirt and Greg influenced everyone in the unknown. And all is well. Wait a minute, go back. Is that a background from Clarence? Clarence is a 2014 show that revolves around the boy and his two friends as they darkly atmospheric with a quirky 19th century slant. Over the Garden Wall is a charming miniseries that isn't afraid to really frighten the audience. The format lends itself to allow the artist to go all out with the look of the show. It's a gorgeous show, and it can be very easy to get deeply immersed within the strange and mystical world of the unknown. The perfect thing to watch during the fall season.
Where are we? Greg, I think we're lost. See anybody?
Oh, I see you.
Sometimes I feel like I'm a boat upon a winding river.
It's a rock
This
fact.
wasn't a place for children. Don't you know the beast is afoot here? He stalks like the night. He sings like the four winds.
Beast is out
He
there.
is the death of hope. He steals their children. And he'll ruin you capture that frog. Give him a proper name.
Okay, I'm gonna call him Wirt. What's with George Washington being naked?
Over the treetops and mountains, over the blackened ravines, then softly it falls by a house near a stream, and over the garden
Jason Funderburker, my frog.
Our frog.
Our frog.
So, happy Halloween and whatnot. Damn, I really need to work on my outros.